Welcome to USA Global TV and Radio, where our mission is to provide education, entertainment, hope, and inspiration. USA Global TV and Radio connects you with experts and audiences all around the world every single day to help you succeed in business and to live a richer life. Visit us at usaglobaltv.com to learn about career and life-changing training and mentoring programs like the Listening Mentor. Subscribe to our newsletter to stay informed about our special programs and offers. Discover how you can become a guest on one of our shows or a host or producer of a USA Global TV and Radio show of your very own. That's USA Global TV and Radio, where the doctor is always in.
Hello, USA Global TV watchers and listeners. Welcome back to Talking Heads. It is our fun show today, and I am your presenter, MARISKA du PREEZ, a leadership partner and coach, and we are exploring your thinking and the impact it has on your leadership. So why is this even something that's important to be exploring? Well, from a recent 2024 Gallup survey, they found that managers and leaders has a 70% impact on engagement in the workforce. Now, this is not only what managers themselves experience within that space, but they found that across countries, when we have leaders that are engaged, the likelihood of non-leaders being engaged are increased. So what does this mean for me as a leader and for you as a leader? Well, our own state of being and our own thinking in our environment has a very big impact on what we create, how we interact with our teams, and actually on the engagement and thus also on the performance of those we lead. So what are ways in which we can possibly help ourselves and, by extension, our team to become more engaged? One way of doing this is through ensuring that we incorporate some active learning in our space. Now, you might think, oh yeah, I learn a lot of things, or I don't have time for that. For a lot of people, there's just no space and time to put any extra things, even learning, on their plate. Now, one thing I want you to consider is, if you are not learning, what is actually happening in your space? Do you innovate? Do you grow? Does things become better? Or do we have a tendency to make the same mistakes, to go down the same path, to try the same things that didn't quite work out the previous time? These are all things that's possible to happen if we do not activate a learning cycle for ourselves. And typically, and this is where our thinking comes in, we get stuck in one of the areas of that learning cycle. So for some people, they really enjoy thinking. They think through a problem. They think through how possibly to do this. They come up with a whole bunch of ideas, and that's it. They don't implement anything. They don't try to do anything. Now, that, if we get stuck in that one area, is not really helpful for us or for our team. The next element of our active learning cycle is planning. Now, I know that there's a lot of people out there that might plan themselves to bits. They plan things, they make sure that they have the list, and then sometimes they go down the list and sometimes they don't. So the planning is a good and important piece of it. And then we need to take action. And that's the doing. So we have the thinking, we have the planning. Now we get to the doing. And in the doing, oh man, I know so many people that love doing. They are the doers. They get into the doing before thinking or planning anything. They jump right into it and they're off to the races. And what happens? What happens when we do that? See, even my doing overwhelms me sometimes by not doing enough breathing there. So what happens when we jump into the doing is we might fall over ourselves. We might run in circles trying to get this thing sorted out. And we're always busy. We never stand still. There's always motion. But because we don't think or plan up front, we literally run spinning our wheels. So doing without the thinking and the planning is also not effective. And then the last piece, and that's the piece that for most people, we have a tendency to forget about it, think it's not as important, neglect it. And that is really around the reviewing. Now, what happens when we review? When we review, we really activate our active learning cycle. Because by reviewing, what we are doing is we're looking at what we learned. What worked well? What didn't work well? What do we need to change next time we do something similar to what we just did? What did we find within our stakeholder groups worked really well? Was there maybe stakeholders that we didn't take into account or that came out of the woodwork as we went along with the project? So having space to sit and review what happened helps us then to go back into our thinking and see what it is that is required for our next step. Understand how our strategy will look like. Then go into planning so that we have a fair idea of what needs to happen and in what order they need to happen. Planning, I'm sure most of you has found out by now, does not always work out exactly the way we think it would. Planning is not there so that we become a slave to the plan. Planning is there to help us think through the steps we need to take. Think through whether these steps will be happening in parallel or in series. Think through what the priority of the steps might be. And also have a good understanding as to what that key pathway through will be, the things we absolutely need to hit in order to make sure that we get to the end goal that we are planning for. That's where a plan is really, really important. Now, can it change? Of course it can change. It is not lying in stone, and we have the ability to adapt. Without the plan, though, we are going to start doing and spinning our wheels because we literally do not know where to start or what is the most important thing to be doing. Then, of course, we get back to the doing, which is part of the experiencing the thing. So when you think about your own thinking, and you think about the thinking, the planning, the doing, as well as the reviewing, which one of them do you have a tendency to get stuck in? What's your favorite? What do you enjoy best? Because the one that we enjoy best typically would be the one where we get stuck in. And then because you are the leader, I also want you to consider, well, if I get stuck in this, how much of that do I bring to my team? And it might be that because that is my favorite part, I lead my team to do that more. But what else is there that maybe we need to consider so that we can go through this whole cycle in a balanced way? Also, stepping away from my team, looking at my team. Where do I find my team get stuck? Do I maybe have a lot of people on my team that's really, really analytical and they love reviewing? It's possible. Or they love thinking about the problem and brainstorming all the possible solutions and all the possible things that might go wrong. Is that where we get stuck? And if that is the place where we get stuck, at which point do we then start doing? At which point do we say, okay, well, we do know that these are the things that can possibly go wrong, and these are the possible options that we have, and this is what we want to go for. This is the plan. So understanding that of ourselves as a leader can help us with our own thinking around where it is that we need to put a little bit more attention. Going through the active learning cycle also helps us as individuals, as well as for our team, to be more engaged, because it gives us that opportunity to challenge ourselves. We want to have a good amount of challenge within our space. Now, if we have too much challenge, you will tend to see that those around you has too much stress. So they will start to complain about having too heavy a workload, not having time, just having too much things to do. Now, when we look at our active learning cycle, it might be that our team is stuck in doing. And because it is doing so much, it might be that we are spinning our wheels a little bit. We do not have a clear plan. We do not exactly know what the priorities might be. And then the doing becomes a problem because we aren't necessarily doing the right things at the time when they are required. We might be doing them in the wrong sequence. We might be prioritizing them for all the right or wrong reasons. We don't know because we don't have the plan. So understanding what is going on helps us to be able to get ourselves and our team more engaged within that space. Of course, the opposite side can also be true. If the challenge is not enough in our space, we might feel bored. We might feel like, well, what am I doing here? What's the point? I don't really need to be in this space. So when we get into that boredom, we do not have enough of a challenge. What also might happen, and we need to be very wary of this as leaders, is to notice when people start to get disheartened and they go into the learned helplessness space. Now, Dr. Seligman did some wonderful research around learned helplessness, and he found that when we are within that space, it's tricky for us to get out of it. We feel listless. It feels like literally everything we try, nothing's going to work. So what's the point even trying? And typically, when we get into an environment where we feel we do not have any control over what's happening to us, it can take us into learned helplessness. Now, if that is a space in which your team and you are operating, and it might be that you've gone through a number of rounds of restructuring or redundancies, then it becomes really, really important to establish for the team the purpose. Now, in general, it's really important for a team to understand its purpose and understanding its purpose from its stakeholders' point of view. Because when we understand what it is that the world needs from us, what makes this group important to be here, then we can start building on it as a team. And that helps us, that fuels us to be able to start to create. And when we are in that space where there is a lot of things happening outside of ourselves that we don't have control over, it is our duty as a leader to look for the things we do have control over and help our team to do the same, in order for all of us to build up the resilience that we need to be able to step into our active learning cycle and become more engaged within the space where we are operating. And all of these different elements helps us as leaders to be a lot more engaged, because as a leader, sometimes we do have a tendency to be a little bit more angry than most of the other people. There is a weight on our shoulders after all. It is a little bit more sad because there's stuff that we need to do that we really don't want to do. And then it might also be a lot more lonely. And understanding how to engage ourselves in our work, what we are passionate about, what we find important to bring into life, helps us to be engaged, to step into our active learning cycle, think through what it is that we want to be creating, plan it out, start the doing, and then review as to how did this go? How effective did I execute on what I wanted to execute? Did I actually hypothesize that what was going to happen actually happened? And if I didn't hypothesize it correctly, which I hope in most of the cases you don't, because that's where all the fun discovery comes in. It means we're learning something. It means we can take all of the juices out of this experience and put it into a new one. That challenge helps to engage us. It helps us to engage as leaders, and also helps our team to engage within the process that we are working, as well as the environment that we are spending our time in. And this way of thinking, this different lens, different perspective to put on as a leader, to have a look at, okay, what can I learn from whatever it is that I'm going through, gives me control. And because it gives me control, It also helps me to stay out of learned helplessness, which means I can help my team to stay out of it too. We can, as a team, then become a lot more resilient. And seeing as you have a 70% influence on all of these things that I just mentioned, it is vital for you as the leader to think about your thinking and have a bit of a look at where you might find yourself within the active learning cycle so that you can enhance your own engagement and enhance that of your team. And with that, I hope that you have loads of fun engaging yourself as well as your team in the next couple of weeks and beyond. And I look forward to seeing you in our next episode here on Talking Heads and USA Global TV and Radio. Until next time, bye-bye.
USA Global TV and Radio, in partnership with Dr. Jacqueline LLC, present Amazon #1 best-selling author, Dr. Jacqueline Kerbeck. Dr. Jacqueline Kerbeck is a certified life, career, and executive coach who teaches people how to listen at an elevated level through her courses and her books. Dr. Kerbeck teaches her clients how to open their hearts and express themselves through their creative genius. In her children's book series, The Amazing Adventures of Lady Ella, the listening mentor, Dr. Kerbeck teaches children and their families how to listen at an elevated level. Dr. Kerbeck has worked with clients across the world to guide them in how to express themselves and communicate at a highly effective level. Join our team of elevated listeners so you can listen without judgment, without providing a solution, without interruption, and without stealing the stage. To order your books today, go to drjacqueline.com or Amazon.